I'm not going to win this fucking race. So,
yeah, I'm not here to win. I'm here to do it.
I want to get
And
that
I think
medal
that,
so I can put it on Instagram. That's all.
boom, I'm getting that dopamine release with those likes. Who cares about the
That
event?
is the weird It's not even it's not even. There's a competition part in it where you're just like, look what I did, you fuckheads. Look what I did today.
Yeah.
And I'm not
And that,
saying that's not a good thing necessarily, but if you can harness it, that's what I'm doing.
whatever your style of motivation is, great. But I
As
think
long as
people
it's not
think,
toxic to other people and it's only,
right.
yeah, you're using your darkness for good, I think it's fine. I think that's the whole key.
Jokes in the gym, jokes in the gym, not jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym, jokes in the gym. With Rudy Tibersi.
Hello, my friends. What is up? Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for stopping by this episode of Jokes in the Gym with Rudy Tibersi. I'm your host, Rudy Tibersi, and I'm stoked to have you here listening to what has been as high as the number 7 comedy podcast in South Korea, Jokes in the Gym with Rudy Tibersi. I'm stoked to have my guest on today. Oh my gosh, he is a comedian, podcaster, and a former college athlete. He's doing it all. He's triathlete in his best. He is Billy Wayne Davis, and he's great, and I'm stoked that he came on the show. This is a wide-ranging episode that I'm stoked to get to share with you, and I was even more stoked to be able to have. Billy Wayne drops knowledge nugget after info bomb. Just dropping loads. Dropping loads of knowledge. So many knowledgeable loads. But he does. He drops so much info on you that's just really good. We talk about a lot of things, from comedy to travel to physical pursuits. This is a great episode, and it just kind of encapsulates what I'm hoping to have on this show, on this podcast. We talk about things like traps that different comedians fall into, how to avoid those, and how to develop as a closer as a comedian. He shares his number 1 swimming tip. Have you ever wanted to know how to swim better? I sure have. He shares his number 1 swimming tip that he got from a very immersive book, so tune in to find out what that is. And he talks about how being a hottie kind of hurt him athletically. Talking about them 6-pack abs, not doing everything you might want them to. He also shares some ancient grandma wisdom that is just like good stuff. Stuff you hear and you're like, oh, I needed to hear that. That reminds me. And it's not even all stuff that's like groundbreaking or things you don't know, but it's just things that you sometimes lose sight of. And when we lose sight of stuff, things get muddled and foggy. That's just what happens when you're not focused on things that you care about. And so I really appreciate this episode. I appreciate Billy Wayne taking the time out of his schedule to hang out with me. I was stoked. I was super stoked for it. I'm not going to be rambling too much with this intro. Though, you know, when I listened, I thought I could be a much better host. I can improve. I can so improve. There's a lot of ways I can improve, and I'm not going to be super judgmental about it. I'm just going to mention that there's ways that I can get better, and I want to. And hopefully, just by listening, just by editing, and being conscientious about stuff, and researching and looking into ways that I can improve, and hopefully I can get rid of this lag. This lag also makes me defer a lot. As a host, I try to let the guests share their stories, and this week is no different. Billy Wayne takes the stage, and I'm happy to hear him speak. He's funny, and like I said, he drops a lot of knowledge on us, and so I'm happy that we had this conversation. So I want to take a second to thank my fake, imaginary, non-existent sponsor, Bob's Buoyancy Balls. Have you ever wanted to be bobbing up and down in that water, but you can't? Well, pop a few of Bob's Buoyancy Balls. Bob's Buoyancy Balls will make you buoyant. You don't want to sink, do you? Call Bob, get his balls in your mouth, make things better. Bob's Buoyancy Balls. Buoyancy, baby, it's the best. And without any further ado, I'm going to get into the podcast with my friend, the hilarious comedian, podcaster, and triathlete, Billy Wayne Davis.
There it
Is
is.
that better?
Now I see some movement on your side. Yes.
Yes.
Here we're
we go.
rolling. It's
Yeah,
the
I
world
changed.
of
That was my B.
that was
I,
your B.
I had it on a different. You know how like when you have a splitter of your Wi-Fi,
Mm-hmm.
and then it went to the wrong one. That's
It went
classic.
Classic internet stuff. Right on. Well, we are jumping into it. I'm stoked to have my guest here today. He's hanging out. You might know him from a podcast he does. You might know him from the comedy he does. You might know him from being just a good dude. Put your hands together for the hilarious Billy Wayne Davis.
Yeah.
Here he is. He's in the house. Are you in the house?
I'm in my garage, which is
Oh, no, you got a garage. Is this your cave? Is this a place for you that you go to like relax and chill?
sure. Yes.
Sure.
Sometimes to relax and chill, and then sometimes to just go stress out, and then
Yeah.
it is when you have a wife and children.
Uh-huh.
I don't even know. It's not by design. I think it's nature. They just kind of take over, and you don't have. So no one gives a shit about the garage,
Right.
and that's why dads are like, "We'll take it."
Yeah. It's like nobody really gives a shit about me, so I get you, garage.
And yeah, and it is funny because what you'll do is like I've made it my own and made it like this little cool thing, and now they're like, "Hey, the garage is cool," and you're like, "You guys, you just can't." I'm constantly protecting my territory, but yeah, it is.
This is all I have, people. This is my space. I go here to stress out. I go here to eat potato chips in silence.
It is. Yeah, that is a lot of just. I have Ritz crackers over there as my choice. Yes.
Yeah, you got to get those calories in. Are you good at getting the calories in? Are you an eater?
Yeah, I think what I'm trying to break right now, my unhealthy eating habit, isn't what I'm eating. It is when I'm eating it.
Uh-huh.
It's
Because
from
that's
you.
that.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's tricky to find the right times to eat as a comedian because you're like constantly trying to gauge how to get the calories in and at what time.
It's well, and you're in different time zones if you're traveling too a lot, and then yes, because you're also up at weird hours because you got to do radio sometimes, and then sometimes you don't, and then sometimes you got to get on planes and travel, and then it was years of my worst habit is, and I do it every night, no matter if I'm on the road or not, is I eat right before I go to bed, like snack while I'm watching TV. And it's from being on the road and you go out and you do the shows. And at first you used to go out and like, hey, I'm young, let's go. And you kind of drinking. So then, and then you eat after because you're just full of poison.
You gotta.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything's in there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, the impulse control is gone because the poison is like, I got this. We're gonna have fun tonight.
It's a good time night.
Yeah. And then after you quit doing the poison stuff because you're like, oh, this is not good for me, then you start replacing it with other stuff, but you're still gotta like calm down after the show. So I found a good hack was you eat a lot of sugar stuff and you get that and it kind of peaks and then you crash so fast and that helps you fall asleep, which is not a good way to do that consistently.
Not exactly. But it does the trick. And so much of that, we're just looking for doing the trick. That's a big part of it.
Survival.
Satisfies that need. Mm-hmm.
I think that's a lot of the road that we don't talk about is you're in this weird, until you kind of get used to what it is, and that takes a decade or so.
Mm-hmm.
You are in a weird survival mode because also, like physically, you're in a survival mode because you're constant motion and you're in new places and unfamiliar. So it's just got to be kind of head on a swivel because of that. And then financially, it's survival mode because for a long time you're not making real money at all. You're just so you've got to be. And all that stress combined, unless you start trying to figure out how to handle it properly, it's a tragic business, is what it is.
It really is. I am scared to find out if there was a study done on the average lifespan of comedians. That would be ugly. Those would be some gnarly numbers, I think, if we looked at them. Like if we saw like the average American versus the average American stand-up comedian. I bet there's at least 10 to 15 years shorter than an average American is my guess. Does that sound about right? Or are you like, no way, Rudy, we're just the same as everybody?
I don't think we're the same as everybody. I do think we experience similar problems, just in different, unfamiliar ways, if that makes sense. For sure.
Yes.
But I do think it also lends itself to people that are already kind of unwell.
Yeah, it does.
So that kind of study would have to be so there would be so many variables that I would have to be like, if they did that study, I'd be like, okay, sure. But there has to be some kind of control here, and because that person, they were already kind of addicted to methamphetamine before they got into comedy. Or they were a used car salesman for a long time that was addicted to like stepped on cocaine. So it's like,
right,
like that's tomato is like what, and then
it's not all the comedy. It's not all the comedy's fault.
It is not. Now comedy doesn't. That's what's weird about it, and I don't know if this is. I think it lends itself to this kind of podcast, which is talking about comedy and then like the health parts of it.
That's kind of it.
And this is like some of the mental health first, which I think what it does, stand up, particularly stand up, and this is coming from my walk. I like to use Jesus terms talking about comedy. I think it's funny because it means the same thing. It's just silly. But like that. So it masks a lot of mental health problems and substance abuse. Because you don't have to be high functioning to do it. You have to have like a natural ability to kind of be charming and funny, and then kind of understand where the joke is, or have no integrity to just kind of take jokes, or and then there's so much more of that in comedy. It's most of it.
It's a lot of it.
I have so much more than we want to. And the older you get, the more you just look around and you're like, oh, this is mostly.
So I have a theory about that. If you will indulge me.
I would love to indulge you on this. Yes.
Comedy is like a conversation amongst all the comedians. Stand-up comedy itself is everybody is putting their piece of gum on the big wad, right? And it's all just stand-up comedy gum. We're all smushing it on there. And sometimes somebody, maybe yourself or a famous comedian, puts a piece of gum on there that sticks out further and harder and longer and stronger than other people. And then other people build off of that piece of gum. Meaning they're like building on that same spire. They're coming, you're talking about grass or weed or whatever in a way that you're talking about, but then that gives other people license to talk about it from their little way. And then they're putting on little bits into that conversation. And for me, I try to make sure that my bits are unique to myself. That Billy Wayne couldn't tell those jokes, that Mike couldn't tell those jokes, that other people couldn't tell those jokes. And that, even if it's just a little piece of gum, is a worthwhile, contribution to the conversation. So it's like we're all connected in some way. We're all loosely aware of what everyone else is doing. And as long as you don't take someone else's gum and chew it yourself, then I think you're kind of okay.
Yeah, I think, sure, you are. But I don't think a lot of people do what you're talking about. I think that so many people are just mimicking actual people doing, being creative and doing that, because it's not like music. There needs to be some kind of familiarity in comedy for strangers to come together, because it's they're like, oh yeah, I know, and then you're right, there is like this base that we're all going from, and like those things. And then I learned, I think, just from being a fan of stand-up comedy for such a long time, before I even as a child, I liked it. I found it interesting.
Yeah, right.
And
did you have any specials you watched as a kid?
No. I just remember my sisters and I would watch stand-up, people doing stand-up. Like, we thought it was fun. Like, there was like one that should look it up. There's this one dude talking about, I think it was Jeffrey Dahmer, one of the dudes, like he was like cooking people in his apartment, like he lived in an apartment. So
yeah,
and I just remember us being like probably 9 to 11, somewhere there, 9 to 12, somewhere in there, and watching someone talk about like that concept of like, he was like in an apartment cooking people. He's like, I live in an apartment. He's like, you can smell. He's like, do you think anyone else is like, what's he cooking? Is that head? Is he cooking a head in there? And I just remember my sister and I just like, I don't even know who did that bit. I just remember it like it cracked us up. And I remember loving that thought process too.
Yeah.
Which is like, what a fun way to look at that terrible thing. It's like I don't know why. Totally. But that's
taking the mundane out of these fantastical, like, actual stories, like to people he knew, he was just Jeff. Like that's
he's that weird. He's a weird dude that, like, in 2A. It's like Jeff is
smells like in there.
He's fine. What he eats is weird, and it's like he's pays his rent. He's a clean, I guess. Yeah,
thumping around.
Well, it is. I think that's also very interesting. Is like, there are these huge moments in our lives, these big events, but it was like, okay, but there's like so much boring in between. Yeah, that's also fascinating.
Yeah,
so
absolutely, it is.
I think stand-up lends itself to like type of. Well, this is okay. This is like a perfect description. And then I think it lends itself to athletics as well, because I've done both. And my friend Matt was working with David Tell years and years ago, and he said that Tell, is just dropping gems of wisdom. Not even
love it.
Not even in that David Tell way.
Not even trying. Yeah.
Not even just who he is.
Yeah.
And they were talking about something, and Matt asked him something, and he goes, there's two type of people that are successful in stand-up comedy that get into it. People that are going to be successful in anything they choose to do, and people that can't do anything else. And it is the most, like, it's one of those, there's like a handful of little, like, I guess, anecdotes, or whatever you want to call them. Yes, just those things that you hear earlier in your career, and then just like older and older you get, you're like, God damn, that one is laser accurate.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
To do it successfully. Yes, it takes a lot, or it takes someone that's like, as long as I get on that stage every night, I will not die. And you're like, I do believe that is the truth. and that somehow you're worth over $1 million. And I don't know if you know that, but
yeah.
Somehow
it is the lifeblood that keeps you going. And I think for some people, like, literally, it's just the juice that runs through their bones, through their body, is stand up, and it just gets them going, because, like,
it's an addiction.
I can't do it every night like I used to. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but I'm like, I don't have that same itch that I once had to go to every single open mic.
No, that's good. That means you're a healthy person.
Okay. All right. That's actually quite helpful to hear from a comedian.
Yes.
Because it's not always what I feel. You know what I mean? I'm like, I need to do it. Why am I not out at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday night right now?
Because you need a goddamn life. What else there's also that, like, there's too much. There is a period in comedy, if you're trying to do it for a living, or just like it's an art form you respect and you enjoy practicing like a craftsman. And I hate using any of those terms with comedy, but it is like, when you're talking the work of it, that is important to me, that you approach it a certain way. And for the first 8 to 10 years, you do need to be kind of like a weirdo. Yeah. Even if you're just like, hey guys, I'm going to be back in 30 minutes. I'm going to go pop and do this set and do this thing. Yeah. But after that, if it hasn't clicked and you're still needing to do this thing all the time, you don't, and you should stop completely.
Because it will ruin you.
It already has. And parts of your life that you do not get yet, it has ruined you. And you're like, well, I quit doing this and this, and you're like, no, it's the stand-up. Some people aren't great at it, and it's okay. You can enjoy doing it. That's fine. But after 8 to 10, you've developed your voice. You've understood how to be on stage and how to do these things, or you should if you've been pursuing it correct. And now you don't need to do it all the time. You need to be a person that's relatable to other human beings that are going to listen to you speak. Because we all know those comics that are just like, everything's about the joke at all time, no matter what. And then you're just like, man, sure. But it's not even funny anymore to hang out with you. That's not funny. It's like this quick draw thing that makes no sense. And like, you're a machine. You're not a human. So who the fuck's going to listen to you just joke about 900 things? So
the time.
It swings too far into that addiction thing to where you're like, oh no, this consumed you in an unhealthy way. And if you're not, I've done it with, a lot of parts of my life. So,
So what are the parts of your life that you use? You said family is obviously a huge one. In a family, and what else? What else kind of like balances you in your day to day?
I like stuff.
Uh-huh.
I like cultures. I love different cultures. I like to exercise. I was an athlete growing up. I'm still an athlete, if that's how that's.
Heck yeah. What'd you do growing up?
I'm from the country, so I played whatever sport was in season or was whatever it was.
Right. That country stock.
My dad was a football coach, so he coached other things too, but football was what he loved. And then, that was how community did stuff, was sports and things like that.
Did you grow up in Friday Night Lights? Was this part of your upbringing? Was that like part of your high school experience?
I mean, high school football was pretty important. We weren't very good until my senior year, and then we were good, and it was a big deal in our little town that we were good, and that was like pretty fun. And and I will say this: there is like, I hated football practice. That's the reason I didn't play in college. It fucking sucks. Even when you're good.
Practice?
Even when you're good. Like, I just thought, oh man, this is, we weren't good for a long time, you know what I mean? And then we had some good players, and then we came together and stuff, and then even that year when we were just kicking everybody's ass, even then I was like, man, this still sucks. This still is not fun. Every day, you're looking at the bell and you're like, God damn it. But then
I know what's next.
Friday night though, whew,
dude,
I've done some really cool shit in my life, but that's Friday nights are kind of like a really special, especially when you're winning. It was pretty wild. Yeah, where I was like, and then I have family in Texas, and you go see that, and you're like, well, this is insanity. Like, I thought what we were doing was crazy, but this is
a different level.
Yeah, there's like that Crosby dude that plays for the Raiders.
Yeah, Max Crosby.
Yeah, I heard him in an interview talking about he played high school football in Texas.
Oh man.
And then it was like, well, he like transferred in. He was like, it was like huge for like 2 years. He was like and then he went and played at like Western Michigan in college and stuff. And he was like, there was like no one at those. He was like, it was weird to be in college and like no one. I was like, oh, I never thought of that. He's like, I was playing like D1 football, and he's
smaller
like,
than his high school.
Smaller than his high school. He's like, the games are harder. These huge athletes and stuff, but he's just like, there's like 6 people here. He's like, what in the hell?
Yeah, the games are harder. Fewer people care, and I mean, that's like comedy too. It's like that's that bottleneck where you have to get through it. That's that first 8 or 9 years where you got to be like, you know what? I'm in it every day. I love this thing or I don't. You're either committed to the game or you're not.
There's also this weird thing that people don't talk about too, where there are like these different traps. Did I get you like frozen? Did I freeze?
Okay. I can hear you.
I don't know.
There's traps.
He's frozen. There you go. Okay.
I'm back.
Well, there's like these weird different traps you don't know about, because like you have these goals when you start out, and then you start making money, and then you get these, I like these things and these luxuries and these comforts, and then so you start opening. A lot of people get a gig opening for somebody that pays really good, and that's usually the step. And I mean, that's a good step. And then, but there's a trap. There's a trap there. If you want to do your own thing, ultimately, you have to step back and not open for them, because you have to go develop as a closer and learn how to do that, and learn how to develop your own crowd and do these things. And then that's a dip. That's a dip in this thing. And it's, but if you look at any learning curve or you know, how to become a master or an expert or any of this thing is like, that's part of it, is you get these things.
Yeah.
And if you really want to do it, you got to dip and really learn these things. Really learn these things. And then you come back out of it, hopefully.
Yeah.
Or you can, you can always just go back to opening. You can always do that.
There's always some kind of work around that you can find.
Well, you do have to like, well, you have to do other gigs and make money. It's like whatever. But I'm just talking about like that as like a goal setting thing of like, some guys don't realize that part and they just stay here because they're like, well, I did all this work. I don't want to have to start over.
Do it again.
And it's like, it's not starting over. It's like you're making money.
It's just about
just not as much money, and it's harder.
Yeah. Well, featuring isn't harder.
No, featuring is easy. That's what I mean. But like when you want to go close and stuff, you're the show. You have to worry about promoting and doing all the stuff. Like when you're middling or opening, that is, especially for like a theater or bigger act, that is that
is the cream of the crop. That's the most fun job in comedy, I would say, is like a feature at a good show for someone who's popping.
Yes, that's the easiest gig in town.
Yeah, it's all dessert. Who was it? Steph Tolev went to college in Canada for comedy. There was programs that you could take comedy classes in your universities, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
The education system in Canada does it. And get this, as you learn it in Canada, featuring goes to people who are less experienced than hosts. Because they know hosting is the hardest freaking job on the bill.
Years ago, the first time I went and did a weekend in Vancouver, they were explaining that. They were like, okay, you're the closer, and then here, who would be like the feature or something in the States is the host, because they have more experience because it's a harder job. And the middle act is the least experienced because it's the easiest part of the show and it just runs better. And you're like, yes.
That makes sense.
It makes way more sense. And it's like better for the show and everything. And it's actually better for money too. It keeps clubs, you know, because the show's just always good no matter what. But, you know, here in America, there's capitalism. So there has to be this insane hierarchy for no reason, so you know your place, and you're like, but this is not good for anyone, including your bottom line, Mr. Money Man.
Dude, putting a bad host up, putting an inexperienced host in front of someone who's like a super experienced closer, headliner, feature, it is a bad look. It is a rough look. And so I'm always like so put at ease when the host knows what they're doing. I'm like, yes, thank you.
I had one recently, and I won't say where or when, just to make it unclear.
Yeah.
But they were doing that young host thing where they were just trying to kill every night. And you're like, just host the fucking show, man. Just like your job. And they told me this, the owner of Zany's, where I was the house MC where I started. I was very fortunate. I worked hard to put myself in that position, but you know, still.
It's a good gig.
He told me, because I had that same. I was like, you just go out there and you be the funniest motherfucker that's ever been. And then I wasn't like cocky or anything. I was just like, I'm just gonna do. And he goes, so your whole job as the host is to get those credits and the way those guys want to be introduced, exactly the way they want to do it. You nail these announcements that I need you to make. And if you're funny, I guess that's cool too. I don't give a fuck. And it was like, you know what I mean? Where I was like, that puts in perspective my actual job here in the best way. And then he also said, and this was like a couple weeks later, but it was those those little bits of advice that just kind of stick. And he goes, he just said something. He's like, "Oh, you're just kind of learning every part of this, huh?" Because I was trying to learn how the kitchen worked with the thing and all the, And he didn't mind that. He was like, "Just stay out of the way." And I was like, and he goes, and he just said in passing, he goes, "That's why you need to learn how to host." He's like, "Because you want to learn how to headline. How can you headline a fucking show if you can't run it?" And I was like, "Bah, yeah." Just that kind of, and it just takes longer. Sometimes I get frustrated where I look and see somebody's popped or somebody's making a bunch of money, and I'm just like, but then I'm like, I don't like their act, or you know what I mean. I see a lot of, I'm like, it's not
totally.
So, but it's so similar to athletics. If you want to
100%.
turn it to that, which is what this is about, that it really lends itself.
Well, it's the same. Athletics and comedy are the same, in that everybody has a job to do, and once you actually know that and get that and understand what they're asking of you in that job, whether you're the open feature, closer, whatever, or in athletics, are you a guard? Are you a wide receiver? Are you the quarterback? The job changes dramatically. Just because you're on the same field doesn't mean you're doing the same things. Doesn't mean you have the same responsibilities. And if you miss that block, your quarterback's going to get smacked in the head. And yeah, you might not lose the game, but that's going to be a bumpy ride for everybody in there. And that quarterback is not going to ask you to be center again next time.
Well, also, I mean, we were playing our rival our senior year. They had this quarterback who was good, and their tackle missed a block, and our D end popped his shoulder out, and he was out for the rest of the game. He didn't do it on purpose. He just, came unbothered right at, and popped Luke's. And I knew Luke, he was our rival, and it's like, and the way Larry hit him, I was like, I was a free safety, and I was like, oh no, that is. And I heard Luke just be like, fuck. I was like, well, that sucks for Luke. That is good for us. Because they have no one else. That no one else. And we were all, we liked it. We were just like, oh, that sucks. But also, makes the rest of this game a little easier for us because he is a problem. But that is like what you're saying is like, yes, is like, that's the reason we all have to do our job to make this thing go well. Is like,
totally.
And then there's this gauges, like.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And so you have mentioned you're an athlete still to this day. What does that consist of? What does that look like for you? What are you doing these days?
Well, I stopped for a little bit when I just figured I'd party, and I played baseball for a couple years in college, and then partied for a couple years in the fraternity, and then found stand-up, and then partied for a decade in that. And
that's how you do it.
Didn't... the thing happened after I quit playing baseball where I gained a bunch of weight because I just kept eating like I was an athlete. And that doesn't, you know what I mean?
Your body doesn't have the same capability.
You don't take into account also how much you're constantly moving and exercising when you're a college athlete or even a high school athlete.
Your metabolism's through the roof. You're eating a metric ton.
I don't even think it's your metabolism as much as like you're just going all the time. So you need energy so you can eat fucking anything because the next day you're like, well, they're going to make us run for 6 hours anyway. So it's like, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was a catcher, so I was just up and down. And then, so then I gained a bunch of weight when I joined fraternity because I was just drinking beer and, I had a meal plan or whatever. And
how does a meal plan work with a rack of Coors Light on the weekend? Like, you got your meal, you're doing 3 meals, but then you're like, I don't care.
Yeah, you're just like, I'm eating Chick-fil-A and Pizza Hut personal pan pizzas all the time. Yeah, I'm moving around because I'm still a horny college dude, but I played some intramural stuff, but I kind of stopped doing that pretty quick because I was still competing like I was a college athlete around people that were not college athletes.
You were smoking them.
Well, I didn't want to. Yeah, I didn't want to hurt these guys I wanted to be friends with either, and they were, So I just I was like, this is
you had
not.
to be careful of your powers.
It was like, and I had to do that like 3 or 4 years ago in LA. They did a comedy writers baseball rec league. And they asked me to play in one. And then I heard, when you walk up and you're like, oh, this isn't former athletes.
Right. Yeah, you get the vibe.
I was like, oh, okay. And then I was just like super, and then I wasn't even trying. And I heard somebody I heard someone be like, hey, it's not fair he's here, is what I heard them say. And I was like, okay, this could affect my career, so I'm not going to do that. And then I found another league of comedy people that were like, that played. And that was kind of fun. And they ended up, because I found them because they got kicked out of the other league because they were too good. And I was like, I bet they're not great. And they were like, yeah, that was what's crazy, is like, they were all like, none of us have been athletes that have been like, you guys are too good to be here. And I was like, well, I was like, but I heard, and I wasn't even, it was just a funny.
Yeah.
But even that.
They had coordination.
Well, they knew what a curveballs and all that, and we could play against grown Mexican men in a league. You know what I mean? It was like fun. Totally. Yeah, it was fun. Yeah. And that was, but even then I was still like, I'm going to dial it back a little bit because.
Yeah. I'll get that super competitive juice in me sometimes. Like, it'll be like, once I feel it coming on, I have to like tamper it down and say, okay, Rudy, you love competition a bit too much at times, and maybe we can relax right now.
This isn't the group that is going to do the competition the way you want. That is, yes. I have learned to pick and choose where I am. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And now I do triathlon stuff, which is kind of works for me. I like it.
All right. Yeah. Which is what got you into them?
I was talking shit to my wife one night. I was stoned in the living room and she was a little stoned. And I was like, I think I could do an Ironman. And she had her computer out and she was like, she was like, huh. And then I looked it up and I was like, oh, there's a half one. I was like, I think I could for sure do a half one without probably even training that hard or whatever.
Right. I'll just jump in. I'll sign up and show up.
Just former athlete arrogance. You know what I mean? That's where I was coming at. And
how'd it go?
Well, she signed me up right then.
Immediately. No bones about it.
She signed me up. I was like, cool. And I told my dad I was doing it, and he was like, you don't know how to swim. And I was like, yeah, I do. And he's like, no, you do not. And I was like, I do. He's like, no, I never taught you. And I was like, yeah, you did. He's like, no, I did not. I taught you how to like not drown and be comfortable kind of in the water, in the lake and after you're skiing and stuff like wakeboarding or whatever. And I was like, huh, really? And then I started trying to train a little bit and I was like, yeah, I don't know how to, I started looking at videos and all that.
This thing, there's a lot to swimming. I can't swim for like the length of a friggin' pool without like getting some kind of shoulder discomfort. Did it take a while for you to like get the hang of it?
I had to get rescued the first 70.3 I did because I was open water. I got decent at the pool, and I mean not even like to where I'm at right now. like what I thought I was like pretty good at. You know
Uh-huh.
what I mean? Then I was like,
Yeah.
oh no, I was still just like very much a beginner. Insane.
Right.
And then I just didn't know enough, and I didn't really look into it enough, kind of on purpose. I think the comedian in me, and then there was enough comedian in me and arrogant athlete mixed with arrogant athlete the first time I did it that I was like, I honestly thought it might be hard, but I'm super stubborn.
Yeah.
And then I thought I could stubborn my way through the swim.
Right.
And then once I got to the bike and run, I'll be fine.
It'll be easy. Yeah.
Well, it's not, but it's like, it's fine. You know what I mean? It's like, it's cardio at that point where you're just
I
like,
can
as
do
long
it.
as you,
Yeah.
as long as you hit water and you don't, and get a little bit of banana or whatever in the thing, you're
Yeah.
fine. It might
Electrolytes.
hurt like a motherfucker, but you'll be fine.
You'll get through it.
And that was my attitude going into Santa Cruz, California.
Yeah.
Open water.
Santa Cruz.
In September. I had no idea what I was doing. I rented a wetsuit at the surf shack the day before. I rented a bicycle. So I didn't even have, because I had been training on a mountain bike.
So it wasn't even your gear.
I was just going to see if I liked it, because to do that investment is expensive to get into it. So I was like, let's see if I dig it. And I enjoyed the training because it's something different every day. And then I like learning something kind of new with the swimming. Yeah, it was kind of like, oh, this is challenging. I would like to know how to swim and be all that. And then I was just learning on my own because I was an asshole. And
did you like find a plan online or something?
Kind of. Yeah, there was this like, looking back on it, it was like this very basic, if you do this, this is like a simple way. And then I look back and I was like, oh, this is more for people that probably grew up doing it. How to get back into it. And I didn't know enough that I was like, I'll just kind of do it roughly like this. And so I was just, there was like this very rough outline of being like, bike for 45 minutes and do this for 30 minutes today. And then there was like no instruction of like, so I was good like at the running part.
When you're building a set.
And listen, there's a million ways that you could have done to begin to do this the right way. And I chose vaguely not to look for them.
Yeah. Because you wanted to just be in the dark and do it on your own.
I really kind of did. In a funny, also thought I could just, and I completely underestimated what that is in a way that now I'm like, I love it. But I'm glad I did it that way too, because I think if I'd have really looked into it at that time, I don't think I would have. I would have been like, this is overwhelming to start and do something.
Totally. Yeah. And sometimes you just got to start by doing it, just by jumping the fuck in.
And I had to, I was just like doing this shit today. And I was kind of laughing. I was like, this is nuts. And I remember seeing it. There's like later on after I failed at it, I was reading, there's like a 10 things to do, not to do your first open water swim or whatever race. I did all of them. I did 10 out of 10. That's wild. And I was like reading, like laughing,
10
like
for 10.
Like I was like, that is like, I didn't even accidentally do one thing right. I did.
Yeah.
Like all my instincts were completely wrong. One of them was like, acclimate your body to the water and stuff, but it's like you can kind of do that, but then you have to get back out and you got to stand there for a while. So I learned that one is just kind of bullshit and like mental. But Yeah, there's no, like, even I've acclimated my body, and then you have to get back out, and then you get back in, your body's still like, whoa, still fucking nuts. This is still nuts.
Yeah.
So it was just like,
what are we doing?
Yeah, you just have to breathe through it, no matter if you were in there fucking 20 minutes ago, 30 minutes ago, when your body's like, sure, we're used to this terrible idea, but still, we're used to it.
We're doing it now.
So I didn't know that. I didn't know how to breathe. I didn't understand what happens. So I just fucking took off when it was my turn and right into the water. It's freezing. But I was like, whoo, yeah. And then just start swimming hard swimming. Yeah. Also, not the move. Not the move.
No. No. You're no naiad.
I'm not a pro. You know what I mean? These dudes, this is what they do all day. So they get to do it faster and harder than everybody else. It is. But that old athlete in us too, I was like, no, I'm good. Yeah. So I get about 200 or 300 yards in, maybe 3 or 4. Yeah. And there's a kid, like a surf dude, like lifeguard, early 20s, mid 20s, on his board. He's there to help. So and the first thing that fucker said to me was like, "It's a long swim, huh?" And I was like, "Dude, that is not just the complete opposite of what you just think." Everything that I could even. But it made me laugh because I was just like, asshole. I was like, okay, this is what this. It's not
helping.
You need to be overly positive, like toxic positivity is your job today in this fucking thing.
Yeah. Get me through it.
Not as a professional being like, this is crazy, huh? What you're doing.
Yeah.
And so I was just kind of like, that calmed me down a little bit because I was like, the comedian in me was like, this is funny. This is funny. And then, so then I swam. I was like, okay, I'm going to go from buoy to buoy and just kind of hold on and rest. And I'm trying to mentally, but I am exhausted.
Figure out how to do it.
I am like super tired. And I can't catch my breath. So I'm like trying to swim to the next one. And I was like, in the middle of it, I was just like, I couldn't catch my breath. I couldn't do this. And I just didn't know what I was doing. And there's like another lifeguard lady. She was on her surfboard. And I was like, hey. And she just waved at me. And I was like, no, bitch, I'm not waving at you. I'm not saying what's up. I was like, I need you. And she was like, oh, okay. Oh, sorry. I didn't call her bitch or anything, but it was just like, no, goddamn.
This is real.
It was, she just waved like, hey. I was like, no, I am not good at this. And then she came over and she was like, you all right? And I was like, I was like, I am. No, I don't. I was like, honestly, I was like, I'm not like in health problem. I don't know what I'm doing. And I thought that I could. And she started laughing. She was like, are you good? I was like, yeah, I can't. I should not go further. That is for sure.
This is not safe.
And then they pulled the jet ski over there. And then I got to they pulled me in from the jet ski, which is like, that part's kind of fun. You're just like on
That's
one
pretty
of those.
Dude. You gotta.
Yeah, the dude was excited because he didn't need to like hold me or like put me on. He's like, oh, you can just hold on the back and then I can just like drag you in. I was like, hell yeah, dude. He's like, so we went. I had
like
fun.
A dolphin at that point.
Yeah, we were having fun. I was like, this is kind of fun. This is worth, this is overpriced what I paid for, but it's still, at least I got a little fun. And then
these other chumps don't get this.
Yeah, well, there were some other people that needed it, but I was just more like, I shouldn't have. That was dangerous what I did out there. And then, so a doctor there's this EMT and doctor guy or whatever comes out, and he's like, hey, I have to check you out or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. He's like, what happened? I was like, he's like, do you not know how to swim? I was like, not really. No, not. I thought I could stubborn my way through the swim and then. He's like, there's always like 2 or 3 of you dudes, and then he's like, there'll be 2 more come in that are just, and I was like,
Yep.
I was like, that is crazy out there. You gotta
warn people.
And he's like, just sit over there, man, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
But what bummed me out was like, I wasn't tired.
Yeah.
I was like, let me go do the bike and the run. Yeah. They won't let...
like, no, you're done. You forfeited your right to run.
But I do know why they do the swim first. My dad was talking, and he's like, "How?" And, I was like, "Yeah, no. If they did that swim at the end, people would die. They would just like every race, people would die."
5 people died again. Pretty good race.
Yeah, it was a good.
The
just one hand in the back slowly goes.
Yeah.
Could we do the swim at the start?
And there's kind of flip it.
Because, if you get tired running, you could just lay down on the ground and not drown.
Yeah. So, it's less life-threatening.
Yeah, it is.
I kind of had a similar experience in the Philippines. Like, I went to the Philippines with my friend when I lived abroad. We got on one of these pontoon boats where, 100 meters away from an island. We're going on this day trip, this day excursion. My friends are like, yes, island. Let's go check out the island in the Philippines. We're on this boat. Everybody jumps off the boat to swim to the island. And I'm like, it's my turn for that. And I jumped in. And again, it's like I took swim lessons in 6th grade by myself. And I still don't know what the fuck I'm doing out there. So I'm like, 20 meters in, away from the boat, and I'm like, oh shit, I can either ask for help right now or die.
Yeah.
And there was about 5 seconds where I'm like, I think I might die. And I start, waving, and these Filipino guys on the boat are laughing at me. They're like, same thing as the doctor is like, there's always one of these fucking gringos out here that doesn't know what they're doing. And so some guy throws me a life preserver, and I get back to the boat, and all my friends are on the beach having a blast, and I'm just chilling on the boat.
Yeah, I'm going to do the boat. I'm doing the boat. Yeah.
Have fun out there, guys. Enjoy the beach.
And it is, I've done them now. The open water thing is like, I'm doing one soon that I'm pretty excited about. And it is, a lot of it is so just mental.
Yeah.
That, because like, it's just, it feels different at first, and it's in open water, it feels like you're not really going anywhere, which is like tough mentally, but you are.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And
you're moving.
You just keep, and like, it's that Finding Nemo thing is the best mantra when you're in open, is just like, just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. And I've, now that I have like some water confidence, not a huge amount, but some, to where like,
you can do the leg.
I can do the, like yesterday, the last 2 days, I've got to where I can swim 12 to 1,500 meters in about 30 minutes, which is, close to a mile. It's like about a mile in about 30 minutes in the pool. I don't, we'll see in the open water. But
you're just going the whole time.
Mostly, I'll take a break here and there just to catch my breath or whatever if I lose my breath. But that's, and when I first started, that was like unheard of. Where, like, after 50 meters or so, I would just be like, I can't breathe good, and this is crazy. But there's like a book I've read, and
what's the book?
Swim Immersion. Let me see if I got it. Hold on. Total immersion.
Total. There it is.
And it is, because I hated it, and I was like,
total immersion.
I hated doing swimming. I hated it. And I was like, there has to be some kind of thing where mentally they can be like, because some people love it.
Right.
And I was like,
born with fins.
But I think there's like a mental thing, or like I'm doing it wrong because the way they can do it, they hop out of the water too at the end, and they're just like, man, it feels good, and you're like, whoa, and the way we're taught is wrong, and this guy's figured it out, and it is like it is now. I can just be like, oh, this is once I get the thing down, it's like kind of nice. I'm gonna go pee real fast.
Right on. We'll go have fun. I can hear that.
Sorry about that. I didn't realize how bad I had to. I didn't realize how bad I had to go until I got up to get the book, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
Ooh, my bladders.
Yeah.
So is there like something in that book that made it click? Was there like a piece of advice that you were like, oh, that's what I was not doing when I was trying to swim before?
Yes, it was. You were supposed to tilt your body, like, you know how like a boat, they figured out like a boat goes faster through the water when it's going like that. Well, guess what? If you do that with your body when you're doing the turn, you're propelling yourself, kind of pushing yourself through, so you don't really have to change even your stroke or anything. You don't have to go faster. You just change the way your body is. There's your torso,
adjust the angle,
and then you don't even have to kick harder either. You can still just kick the same amount, and you glide a little more than you normally would, and then once you're not using as much energy either, right? Because you're just kind of going through. It's kind of cool.
It does seem so. In that way, your torso almost becomes like a fin, like because it's like part of doing. It's a propeller of sorts in some ways, or is that just?
It's just more. You're just It's so much denser than air. Water is, so you're just kind of cutting any, because when you're just like this,
friction away.
When you're like this,
you're finding the ways. You're finding the little creases.
It's like
in the water.
groove, and you're just kind of. There's also like there's more rhythm to it that I kind of work.
Yeah.
When I take breaks, and some of my, do you know Katie Ellen Humphreys from Vancouver? She's a comedian.
I'm not sure.
She's a comedian. She's in Northwest. Nice. She does, or grew up doing like long distance swimming, like 10 kilometers and stuff in like Victoria. And that's insanity.
That sounds gorgeous.
Of course, but you're also in the water and you're just like, well, I can't really see anything. Every time you stop and you're like, wow, this is cool. Anyway.
Back to darkness.
Back to the seawater in my mouth. But she was saying, she gave me a couple of like really good tips that I don't know anyone. I don't know how I would have found them unless talking to people like that do it a lot. But she was like, when I'm doing triathlon stuff, that anytime in the pool will help me with the run and the bike, but anytime I do the bike or the run, it will not help the pool at all. And she's totally right. So she was like, so if she was like, always overdo the swim, because that can help the other.
That.
And I was like, oh, that is huge. So I've been doing that with this training. Right. And just your cardio fitness from swimming, it gets, and it helps with your run. Like now when I'm running, I'm like, what the fuck? This is
easy.
It is easy. It is wild how you're like, okay. Yeah. And then the other piece of advice, what was the other one that I really liked that she gave about the swim? Oh, it wasn't an advice. It was just, she was just kind of talking about it, but it made sense that she's like, I can go for 10 days in a row, but then I'll not go for a day or two in a row. And then I'll get back in. And she's like, and it'll take me a while to figure she's like, it's like stand up in that you feel like your rhythm and stuff. It takes you a couple times to get it back if you take any breaks. And which I remember her saying that, and I was like, okay. And then once I figured out how to actually swim, I was like, oh, I see what they're talking about, because I'm not like, I'm still working on getting my stroke really good. Now I just kind of understand it, which helps. And it is exciting because it's like, oh, the more I work on this, the better I'll be at this, and then this won't be hard anymore. This will just be part of it. Because now my whole goals are to finish.
Right.
And now they're starting
through an entire race.
Well, I've finished 2 or 3, and then I've not finished 2 or 3 because of different things.
Swim.
And then
or whatever.
Swim once, and then cramping twice, and I'm gonna brag about the cramping thing. Both those times I was in unbelievable shape. Still worried about the swim just because I'm not great. Before I read the book, and I wasn't super confident and comfortable. And now I'm just like kind of confident and like not uncomfortable in the water. So which is like
that's a huge step.
It is. But those two, so I quit eating processed sugar completely.
Yeah, you talked about that.
Yeah, and I'm back on sugar a little bit, but not the way I used to do it. Because what I found out is if you do it like a drastic thing like that, and then you're trying to do these endurance events, they don't mix because you need some fat. And because it helps with the water, you're more buoyant.
Yeah.
And then B, you hold water, so you stay hydrated longer.
So old Billy Six-Pack wasn't as healthy for all of it.
Yeah, I wasn't. That's the 6-pack is not healthy at all. It's not a healthy way to live. It's the fucking craziest. You're just like, let's just look how hot I am, and you're like, sure, but you're not very healthy, and you're like, really? That is crazy. So when you see someone shredded, we're just like, I'm tired, a little bit tired. You know, I feel great. I do feel great. I don't have to eat a lot, but like I pee 900 times a day because any water that goes in comes right back out because there's nowhere for it to go. My dad, after he was there, he's an old football coach. He's like, because it happened, I tried to do Santa Cruz again, and I was in, that kind of, it defeated me. So I was like, I'm going back. I have to. You get it. Some guys don't. A lot of comedians are like, you're insane that you're still doing that. I was like, oh, I'm going back this year because I didn't get to do it the second year.
Hell yeah.
And I know how to, but Dad, before I even got in the water, both legs just kept cramping. And I was like, I don't know what. I was like, and I'm not getting in this open ocean with two cramp legs. I was like, if a little bit of nerves, but the way they were cramping, I was like, you go under. You can't. And then there's like 1,000 people out there, so they don't, I was just like, I have kids. I wish I didn't have kids and a wife, or I would still try this, but I just can't. And then he's like, I think you need to eat sugar or something. And I was like, shut up. He's like, I know this sounds crazy. He's like, but I think you're in too good of like shape. You don't have enough fat. And I was like, I started laughing. I was like, that makes me feel better. That's funny. He's like, I'm not trying to make you feel better. I'm trying to tell you what is the problem. And then my friend Katie, I was telling her,
good.
Yeah, that's what I was. I was like, but I don't know. Check it. I got cum gutters.
All right. Look at that.
And then my friend Katie, she said it. I was telling her about that, and she was like, oh, yeah. She's like, she was like, I was worried about that. I saw you training on, she was like, I should have texted you or something. She was like, any of those long swims, anyone that's like there's always dudes like you that are like super lean just naturally, and then you do something on top of it that's a little extreme, and then you do look great, but they always get hypothermia or they get dehydrated. And I was like, yeah, it's just such a weird thing to be like. My problem was I was too hot to compete.
Yeah,
which is like the worst. It's like the weirdest brag ever.
Yeah, what a shitty thing your body does. It's like it's only good for like 2 things and not all of this functional shit that you're trying to do.
Yeah,
Evade sharks for 40 minutes.
The sharks I'm not worried about.
Yeah. No,
because also if I get eaten by a shark, that is hilarious way to die. Kid from Tennessee, just in the middle of San Francisco Bay with 2,000 other people, and that shark eats me. Come on, yes,
perfect.
God,
I'll take it. Nom.
It better kill me though. I do not want to survive that shit.
Yeah, I'm not trying to live with half of my face gone.
It's just me chasing the shark.
Legs.
Come back and finish the job, you piece of shit.
Fucking call me chum. Yeah. So, do you find that being in good shape impacts your comedy, or how do you find that body and mind connection functions for you? Like when you're in great shape, does that impact how you are on stage?
Yes. I mean, when I'm having fun up there, the audience is going to have fun.
100%.
So, and in a way that even when I'm not, and I'm still phoning it in, I'm still better than most doing that. But when I'm having fun up there, it is a different, I can take it to a different level. And that's what I'm trying to do now. Is when I'm touring. I'm done trying to get really, done trying to get my legs. And now I'm trying to build a thing. And I'm also older. I know how to travel. I have kids, so the way I tour has changed. So I don't have to be out every weekend. I'll go out for these longer runs, but they're harder because we're somewhere different every day. Did I lose you? Okay, got you.
For a second there, yeah. The way you're touring has changed, and then you started, and then I couldn't hear you. So how has touring changed? What's touring?
Well, because I have kids and a family. So I don't like to go out every weekend because you miss so much more stuff that way. So now I'll go out for like longer periods so I can be at home longer. So when I'll go out, I'll go like 7 to 10 to 14 days sometimes. And then, but I'm hitting different cities every night. And that is a taxing way to do it. And if you're not in good shape, you can't handle it. You just can't.
Right.
And I have to be in good shape to do this, to be happy for my family and be there for them the way I want to be there for them or the way they need me to. And also continue building my career the way I need to and the way I've invested. And then it's just, I've toured with a couple of people or tried to ask Mike about going out with me last year. He was, and I couldn't figure it out at the end. He was just kind of, I was like, oh, and it hit me later. I was like, oh, I wore him out. I didn't. And then he even
didn't take that into account.
Yeah, he even, because I needed to show him. Well, he said, I want to do it and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, I'll show you what this is. Yeah. And then he was like, oh, it's like 24/7. I was like, yeah, it's 24/7. It is, your schedule is not yours. It is yours, but it's not. And there was like, you have to be in shape. And because you also have to be in shape because when you're tired, you make poorer decisions. And then you lose money when you make those decisions. These are all things. These are wisdom, things that are beaten into me. This is not knowledge. This is So this
is ages of comedy wisdom. Yeah,
it is. So about 11, 12 years ago, I started looking around at older comics and looking around at myself and my contemporaries, and just looking at the condition that people were in that continued to do this and did these things. And I think, I had a nicer wake up, or not wake up or whatever, but like I had a kid at 28, the divorce. So that kind of early, before you're 30, that kind of gives you a perspective that a lot of my contemporaries and friends didn't have yet. They were just starting to get more money, so now they were just starting to ramp up the party and some, and that kind of stuff, which I get. And I look back and be like, whew, that is, things you think were like, oh, this sucks and this is hard, and you're like, oh, that's good that on some level that I probably saved my life on some level.
Not jumping into stuff that other people did,
or not even having like consequences of doing it more, because I think that's what a lot of it is like. When you if you're not at yourself in stand up, when you get access and money, you don't have to be anywhere most of the time. And where you do have to be is not for very long, and what you have to keep it together for is not too difficult to keep it together for. So the consequences for your
pockets,
you just have to keep it together in this weird way that and you just have to be fun for 90 minutes, even 30 if you're just popping in and out and doing whatever. But like that and then the next day you don't have to do anything really, and you've got money or whatever, and you got these things. So I was lucky where I was
in
like
a direction.
Yeah, I was lucky. I mean, I've wasted plenty of time in my life, but there is like, looking health wise, it was like these things of being like, okay, where are we going to be in 10 years? Where would you like to be? Let's start taking care of our stuff. And then you start taking care of your body and stuff. And you're like, well, the rest of life is kind of easier when I do these things.
Right.
And
so you feel like you're set up now for the longer haul because you've taken this time for yourself and your health?
Yeah. Without a doubt.
Yeah, I love it.
Like I remember I tweeted back when Twitter was like a thing, everyone was kind of having fun. It doesn't matter. But it was like I tweeted one time, because all these comics and stuff are like, oh, I'm depressed and blah blah blah, and I just tweeted, I was like, most of y'all are not depressed, you're hungover because you just pour a fucking depressant in your fucking mouth every night, and the next morning that's why you're sad. So stop drinking for 30 days and see if you're still fucking sad. And like it was just like one of those early morning, like I was just like, I wasn't even mad. I was just like, hey, this is I think some of y'all need to fucking hear this. Honestly, you're not fucking depressed. Shut the fuck up. What are you depressed about? You just fucking hang out all the time. There's nothing to be fucking depressed about. And then just like, and I it's one of those things I forgot, and like just a handful of people throughout since I tweeted that were like, man, that pissed me off that morning. But then later I was like, oh, he's like right about that. I was like, yeah, dude, it's not because I'm smart, it's because I did it. And then I just one day you go on a walk, and you go on a longer walk, and then where we live now, I remember when we moved in, this is before the triathlon shit or any of that stuff, and I was just kind of like healthier. I wasn't like healthy. I was just, and there's a huge hill behind our home, and I remember being like, it'd be cool to like be like, that's what I run, and it takes like 30 minutes or something. And within 2 or 3 years, I was running it. Now it wasn't, and now I did it the other day, and it took me 22 minutes. to do the whole thing, and then in a longer way than I usually go to. And I was like, oh, yeah, that just started with me. Just like one day I walked up there, and then one day I was like, oh, let's see if I can run all the way up there. And then now I was like, that's just all it is. And that's how I view the swimming in the same way. Is like, no, you just keep going, and I can hold a kayak if I get tired, and then keep swimming.
Yeah.
It's fucking fine. I'm not going to win this fucking race. So,
I'm not here to win. I'm here to do it.
I want to get that medal so I can put it on Instagram. That's all.
Boom. I'm getting that dopamine release with those likes. Who cares about the event?
That is the weird it's not even it's not even, there's a competition part in it where you're just like, look what I did, you fuckheads. Look what I did today. Yeah. And I'm not saying that's not a good thing necessarily, but if you can harness it, that's what I'm doing.
Whatever your style of motivation is, great. But I think
as long as it's not toxic to other people and it's only you're using your darkness for good, I think it's fine. I think that's the whole key.
It should be okay. I'm not trying to shit on anyone, but if me posting that medal makes one person go on a jog, fucking rad. That's amazing.
It is. It is that cool thing of like, you do see little stuff where you're just like, oh, look, motherfuckers outside now. You're like, there you go. Yes.
Yeah.
Because if it's just because they're like, look at that dumb hillbilly can do it, I can do it. And you're like, yeah, you can. That is my favorite thing. And this is, I tell my kids this, and I say it to myself all the time. And I don't even know the first time I heard it, it was when I was formative, probably like adolescent. Well, right when you start being like, I'm going to figure out how to be like a baseball player or like actually not just for fun. Like I want to be.
Yeah, I want to train. I want to be that thing.
Yeah, I would like to be like and I wish I knew to give it credit for them who told me. They didn't come up with it, but it was whether you believe whether you think you can or you can't, you're correct.
Yeah.
And it is, I say it all the time to it's just like, that's just a little piece of like, God damn, that's the truest fucking thing in the world. It is the truest thing. It's not, well, and people get caught up, you're like, well, I can't do it. And I was like, no, I didn't say now. But if you think you can, there's a way to fucking do that shit. And that's, people are like, why you like LA? I'm like, because it's one of the few places in the world where if you have an idea, there's enough people and interesting, talented people that you can make it a thing if you really want to. And there's not many places on the planet where that you can facilitate that. That's cool. That's fast. Even if I'm not even working on anything currently or trying to be creative, being in that kind of energy is fucking cool to me. So.
It's infectious. It helps you get things moving when you're like, I know this is something I can do. When you know that it's something that's available, then you're so much more likely to take that first step.
Yes.
And that thought that you say, if you think you can or you think you can't, you can't. You think you can't. Think you can't. Your kids will think about it in 10 years and be like, fucking dad. But
yes.
Then they'll be like, fucking dad was right.
Dad's right. Yes. That one, and then one my grandmother told me, she said, and it fucks with me sometimes but the older I get, the more I'm like, man, she's right, is you can get happy just as quick as you got sad. That one, I said it to my son, my little 5-year-old was in a shitty mood over something just out of nowhere. He was like in a great mood, and I picked him up, and then so we're doing a walk, and I was like, hey, I was like, what happened? He was like, well, this happened at the end of and I was like, did you have a good day before then? He was like, yeah. And I was like, well, can I tell you something that Mimi used to tell me? He was like, yeah. I was like, she used to say, you can get happy just as quick as you got sad. And he's like, he's a sharp little kid. And he just looked at me. And he just kind of grinned. He's like, all right. And then he's like, just kind of started skipping. I was like, whoa, that worked so faster than I thought that was. I thought I was going to have to explain the concept of all that. And then he was just like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'll just be happy then. You're like, fuck yeah, you will.
Good for him to start knowing that. Dude, starting to know that at age 5 is fucking huge.
I would say just that he got the concept. So, like, he grinned, like, oh, I see what you're doing. And, like, my wife was like, we'll see about it. And then he was just like, yeah, we're in better mood. And I was like, that's it. That is it.
That's huge. That's huge. Because if you let that low mood roll, you'll turn into a fucking Eeyore rolling down the hill. You'll
all the time. Like, we've all been there.
All the time. It's easy to do.
It's like when you're sad. Remember when you're like sad and you listen to sadder songs? You're like, what are you doing?
Yeah. It's also great. I love it. Just wallow in it. Just sit in it.
Well, there was a time in your life that when you're just like, it's your teenage years, where sometimes I walk in, my son will be listening to some emo shit, and I'm like, that's the time. This is the time for that. This is I remember I listened to Live as an adult, that band Live, and I was like,
woo! My feeling. I was like, again. Is that
just
Live?
Yeah, just angsty. Yeah. Just where I was like, this is a lot. And I used to love this band. I was like, oh man, just hormones is all that is.
I was in that. Yeah, when you're 12, 13, 14, things are raging, you can dive into that like sadly so hard.
I know what this feeling. And you're just like, and as an adult, you're like, I don't want to feel like that. I was just like, what are you doing?
Speak to me, Scott Stepp.
Well, you just that's Creed, but you do say it's the same thing. But you do, as an adult, you're like, man, I can't imagine being in a room recording this. Like, I can't.
Yeah,
you'd be tapping into some deep sadness there.
There were 20 sad men in the room when they made this song.
It is. But then you listen to something like Ben Folds. And you listen to like Brick, and you're like, "This is super sad." And I thought this was a fun song.
I still love Brick. Like there's you got to tap into sadness sometimes too, though. Like,
well, he's
Brick
so irreverent. I love how irreverent he is, and he is funny. I think he might be an asshole as a human, but
I wouldn't be surprised.
It was that I think that I'm not 100% on that, but it was like one of those where some Nashville musician friends of mine are like, no, he's funny. He's kind of a dick. And I was like, I remember having that being like, yeah, I can see that. I think probably, he's kind of funny.
I love hearing,
but like in a Chevy Chase kind of way. You know what I
mean? Yeah, he's got it. I love hearing who's an asshole. That just brings me so much joy.
Sometimes, yes. Sometimes you're just like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. And then other times you're like, sweetest person in the world, and you're like, huh, okay. Usually, if they're open, like if their art is like kind of crass and like in your face and aggressive, off stage they're like the sweetest, chillest motherfuckers you've ever met. But if they're like
the Bob Saget's of the world,
yes, if they're like squeaky clean kind of motherfuckers, they like you better watch out because they're and they're anomalies, but that is a general.
Yeah, what's Brian Regan up to?
Well, Brian Regan just says cocksucker, and he just curses so much off stage. He's not a bad person.
Oh, does he?
He just curses a lot off stage, and it is that the first couple times you hang out with him, you're like, it's a little weird, and then you're like, oh, this is his outlet. This is how he gets it. I just do it up there, but he can't.
Yeah,
because that's his bread and butter.
Doesn't work either.
Yeah,
yeah,
it is. So he's just like, hey, fucker, what's up? And you're just like, oh, yeah, I guess you got to have to do that. Yeah, that's better than like, you know, you have a puppy strangling closet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This is where I do to silence the noises.
Yes.
Billy, Wayne, Davis, you're a delight, dude.
Anytime.
Thank you.
You are too. I want to see you. And then July, I'm coming to Eugene.
Yeah, you're doing the Krusty show, Krusty the Clown. I did that show with Tom Rhodes the other week.
Yeah, it's the dude's backyard, right?
Yeah, it's cool. It's fun. Josh is an awesome guy. He's salt of the earth.
If I'm gonna do any backyard show, Eugene, Oregon, in July, I was like, that sounds like a delightful time. especially it's the week of country fair, so there'll be a lot of.
Oh, what day is it? Do you know?
Well, that weekend is country fair, and then I'm doing the Monday show at the yard. So I was like, that'll be perfect because people are starting to head into town, and there'll be some real Eugene unique characters.
Have you been to country fair?
I haven't. I missed my window. I can't go until my boys are 18, I don't think.
Okay. Why
the way
not?
I want it, because the way I would like to do it. I would like to disappear.
Okay.
And I can't do that.
Well, I'm running the comedy stage with Seth and Devin and a few other people this year, but I'm really kind of trying to plant seeds in people who might be interested in that kind of experience, because I loved it in a way that I didn't think I was going to. Because last year was my first year camping, doing the thing, and it was amazing. It was like actual community in the woods with a bunch of,
because it sounds like a nightmare. If I'm being like as an adult, it sounds like a nightmare.
I 100% get that, and it might be a nightmare for some people.
But Mike has the same. He has the same testimony you do.
He was there. He had a blast. He was awesome. It was so
he
much
has
fun.
The same testimony, like the same way, and I've done the same thing where I'm like, dude, I've been doing these festival things and I like, as an adult, my whole adult life, performing at them, and then I don't like to go unless I'm away from the big crowds because it just it's an anxiety. I've seen too much shit. I don't like it.
I get that. Yeah.
But I love the community of all of it, and like performing at them. They are really fun, but if they're too big, it creeps me out at this point. Have you ever seen Bonnaroo where there's like 20,000 people just like kind of moving together in these like?
So it's not quite that level, and I think that the stewards of fair are very careful to try to keep it maintained. Yes. And try to kind of limit the amount of that kind of madness, because that is totally antithetical to like what they're trying to build, what they're trying to grow, and what it's got the Woodstock vibes. You're in the woods, everybody's loving life. You see fairies, you see butts, you see ball sacks, you see.
Yeah, I knew that doesn't. Yeah, I knew all that. That's just regular Eugene stuff.
And you see Reggie Watts. I bumped into and met and got high with Reggie Watts for half of the weekend last year. And he's coming back. He's a headliner this year. There's so many people that are like going to be a part
my
of
friend
it
Rizzo, Lady Rizzo, she's her and my wife are really good friends from New York City. She loves it.
Oh.
She's like a burlesque singer.
Yes.
She's super talented. Maybe I can get my wife to go next year. Yeah, we'll try it. Yeah, you should go. If you see Rizzo perform, she's great.
Okay,
awesome.
So keep it in mind, one of these years, obviously probably not this year, but one of these years, like, we'd love to have you around, and it's just such a fun vibe, and I would love for you to be a part of it.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'll put it in the queue. How about that?
Yeah, it's the second weekend in July, so
okay.
Yeah, keep it in mind. And it's
and then you can
just
find
stoked.
me.
It's the next big thing I kind of have on my calendar, and I'm like putting Derek Sheen's going to be there this year. Ron Lynch was there last year. There's all sorts of people who will pop in and talk to some folks about it and get their vibe and see what the experience was. I'm trying to talk Kyle into it. Tom Rhodes was interested. And so I'm just kind of like putting the words out there to people who I think might be down to vibe.
I could do it. Yeah. Okay. Maybe. Okay. Mike's been pushing too. So now there's two people. And then Adam Jacquez wants me to go, and I love him. So
love it. Good. Well, I hope to see you there one of these years, man. And let me know if you have questions about it, and we'll figure it out.
Perfect. Dude, thank you for having me on here. This is fun.
Good. I'm glad. Thank you for being a part of it. It's just a nice way to connect with people, a nice way to chat, and like just one-on-one, man. It's hard for me in big crowds too. Like comedy, I'm not always on my game, and so it's nice to just have one-on-one time. I appreciate it.
I'm the same. I don't too many rooms full of too many loud people. And I'm like, all right, that's not how I do things. So, yeah. Thanks, dude.
I hear you.
I got to go be a dad real fast.
Right on,
so.
VW.
But let me know, and I will put this
go
on all my socials, and you can Google Billy Wayne Davis, and all that shit comes up. That's the best way to do that, because we have 900 platforms you're supposed to be on, so just do that.
There's too many. Google Billy Wayne Davis, you'll find him all over. BWD, I appreciate you. Thank you for stopping by.
Yeah, dude, I'll see you in a couple weeks. See you. Bye, dude.
Love it. See you soon.
Jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym, not jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym. With Rudy Tybersi.